In this video, we're going to create this photographer's portfolio site from scratch. And usually I would ask you to attempt to do this on your own and then give you a solution video following this. However, this time it's a deliberate code along, so I'd like you to attempt to code along. And if you prefer, you can watch it once through and then code along the next time. But the goal here is that we're going to do it together. And there are two other things that we want to get out of this. The first one is there's a new property I'm going to show called float. And the second thing is I just want you to get a little experience building something that you can be somewhat proud of that looks a little bit better than some of the simple things that are just really bright, awful colors that we've done so far. So this is a really minimal photo blog that we're going to do. So let's get started. Open up Sublime. I have a single file called photogrid.html. I'm going to first show you the image URLs that we're working with. So these are images, 9 images, 3 images each from 3 different photographers that I found on Flickr. All the photos are licensed under Creative Commons. You can view the license here. So before we do anything with these image URLs, I'm actually going to get rid of them. And I'm going to add in my HTML skeleton, add in photo blog, and I'm going to do a quick demonstration. So you don't have to code along with this part. I'm going to add 2 divs, one that says hello and one that says goodbye. And I'm going to save them. And then I'm going to add my style sheet in, which I'm calling photos.css. And then over here, I'm going to style my divs. So I'm actually going to give them an ID. Let's just call it 1. And again, this is just to demonstrate something. And then 2. Then over here, I'm going to select 1 and 2. And all I'm going to do is just give them a different background color. Red, and then background color purple. And then I'm going to give both of them, all divs, a width of 100 pixels. So when I do this and I open it up in the browser, we have 2 divs, one after another. Remember that if we inspect, they are basically set up so that they take their own line, their block level element. So if I don't want that to happen, which is what we're going to do for the image grid, we want our images to form a grid where multiple are on the same line. And if I want to do that with divs, I need to use a property called float, or that's one way that I can accomplish it. So here, all I do is say float left. And what that will do, it will take the elements, all divs, out of the normal flow of the document. So they're stacked currently on separate lines. And what will happen is that they will float to the left. So think of it as gravity going away almost in our document. And so this div is going to float up and push to the left against this one. So if I refresh here, you can see that they're now on the same line. So we're going to use this principle when we're using images so that we can get images to basically go up against one another and form a grid. So I'm going to get rid of all of this now and get rid of the divs that we have. And I'm going to add in our image links. So I'm going to make this full screen and just paste in these image links that are in that file included with this video. And rather than making 9 image tags like this, where I make an image tag and then copy a URL and then paste it in 9 times, which would be very slow, I'm going to use a little bit of Sublime magic here, where I'm using command click to select the beginning of every line. And then I'm just going to type image source equals and then move to the end of the line. So I used command right arrow. Command left arrow takes you to the beginning, command right goes to the end, and then I'm going to finish with quote and then the closing bracket. So that was a really easy and quick way to enclose all those URLs as image tags. So if I save this and I go to the browser, you'll see when I refresh, we now have 9 images. Of course, they're not in a grid. They're taking up a lot of space. So what we're going to do now is go to our style sheet and select all images And the first thing that we probably want to do here is just give them a width. So let's give them a width like 100 pixels to start. And this is going to be way too small, but I want you to see what happens. I refresh, and you'll notice that all of these images now are in a line together, but that there's some spacing between them that we didn't specify. We never set margin or padding or anything. So what's happening is that there's actually some white space that's being added, and it's a little bit of a quirky thing in HTML, but when we have images without anything else, there's a white space or just a single space that's added between these. So if we want to get rid of that, we can use float. And remember that float will take things out of the flow of the document. So if I refresh now, you can see that our images are butting up against one another, and there's basically no space at all between them. And then we can go back and add that space in ourselves. So we obviously don't want them to take up this little space. We do want 3 going across, and we want some margin between them, but we want to control that. So by floating them, we got rid of the white space that the browser added for us, so that we can now go and add our own custom spacing using the margin property rather than actual white space. So now we're going to change the width, and let's start with 30%. So remember that the percent is relative to the parent element, so the body. So each one will take up 30% of the body. And the reason I'm starting with 30 is just to make sure they all fit on one line, or that 3 fit in one line. And you'll see that we get 3 of them going across, no space between, and then we have our 10% over here, because this is only 90% that we're taking up. So we're going to use that other percentage to actually split up the margin and add some spacing between them. So already we have a 3x3 grid, but what we want to do next is make it look like this, where we have even spacing between them. So we actually have to do a little bit of math. So I've already done it, but basically if we calculate this, there's a margin here, 1, there's a margin here, 2, there's a margin here, 3, and then on this one, 4, then on this one, 5, and on this one, 6. So we have 10%, and we need to divide that by 6. And 10 divided by 6 is 1.66. So what we're going to do is just say margin 1.66%. So if we go back to the browser and check out the result and refresh, you'll see that we get 3 evenly spaced images with spacing between them. So the math, just to hit that one more time, each one of these is 10%, so that gives us 30%, and each one has a margin of 1.6% on either side. So we take both sides, left and right, 1.6 times 2 plus 30%, and we get 33.3% per each one of these. So that's 1/3 exactly, or almost exactly. We are rounding, but that's the best we can do here. So 33.3% each one of these. We can inspect just to verify that. There we go. You can see they take up exactly 1/3.